So the Warriors open preseason 4-0, and I ain't gonna lie, they looking scary. After smacking the Pistons without Steph Curry and Draymond Green, the Warriors now moved to 4-0 in preseason. And my main takeaway is that this team is insanely deep. But before we get to that, y'all might have noticed, yes, I cut my hair. I had to change it up a little bit, had to switch it up. But let's get back to these Warriors. Starting with Jonathan Kuminga. 4 games in the preseason, I think it's pretty obvious by now. Kuminga's three-point shooting took a leap. He's not just knocking down standstill corner threes. He's knocking down movement shots on the wing. He's pulling straight ahead threes from the top. And not only are they going down, he looks confident shooting it. I don't think this is a fake preseason shooting performance. He legitimately looks like he improved as a shooter. Confidence goes a long way, and the Warriors are instilling a lot of confidence in him. Now, as a preseason, he's shooting well over 40%. He might be shooting closer to 50%, so I don't expect those percentages to translate to the regular season. But can he shoot around 36 to 37% on twice his normal volume? I think that's definitely more than doable. Look, if Kuminga's three-point shooting is real, that changes a lot for the Warriors' rotations, because now all of a sudden he's a viable option to play as a small forward. Which means lineups with him next to Draymond Green and TJD looks a lot better offensively if he can space the floor. So you would love for Kuminga to work in that lineup, and it looks like he should be. If Kuminga's a legit threat that teams have to account for on a three-point line, that blows his offensive game wide open, because now teams have to play up on him. They can't just sag off. And when they do, that makes Kuminga's ability to get to the rim way easier. Bro, imagine defenders having to react to Kuminga on the three-point line. He can now attack closeouts off his own gravity. That would be huge. I think Kuminga is easily averaging 20 points per game this season. Hopefully his free throw shooting improves a little more as well. He shot 74% last season. I would love to see it up around 77 or 78%. In my opinion, Kuminga has to start. He's the Warriors' second best offensive player. And when you think about it, how many teams in NBA history has brought their second best scorer off the bench? I would say none. And if they did, that team probably wasn't that good. It just doesn't make sense. Steph's your one. And how the roster is currently constructed, Kuminga's your second best option. So he has to start. His improved three-point shooting solidifies it for me. But I guess that's up to Steve, so we'll see. Moving on to Moses Moody. Moody's been hooping this preseason, and he's looking to force Steve Kerr's hand. Yeah, I know the Warriors are deep at his position, but somehow, some way, Steve has to find at least 20 minutes a game for Moody. With the way he's played and the improvements he's shown, he's earned it. Moody's been more than patient waiting his turn. 3 seasons of it. In my opinion, GP2 still looks solid, but Moody's just a better option. Outside of very specific situations where you need a defensive specialist, Moody should be playing over GP2 every time. GP2's still the better defensive player, but Moody's a way better offensive player. I've been impressed with Moody's no hesitation three-point shooting and his finishing at the rim. He's been knocking down his catch and shoot threes with a lot more confidence and a lot less hesitation. Moody's a good shooter. He's always been a good shooter. He just hasn't been in rhythm throughout his career due to his sporadic playing time. If you can carve out a consistent 20-minute per game role for Moody, I'm fairly positive he could shoot 40% from 3 for the season. He's that good of a shooter, and he's coming into this season improved. But something tells me Steve Kerr's gonna find a way to pull some bull. Let's just hope Steve Kerr sees what we see. Hey man, free Moody. Next up, we got Brandon Podziemski. Pods has been pretty solid in preseason. He hasn't really looked improved in any particular aspect of his game. He does seem to be shooting threes at a more frequent rate, but other than that, everything does pretty much look the same. And that's okay, because he's a pretty damn good player as a rookie. Now, would it have been nice to see Pods come back as a better offensive player? Of course, but at his root, Pods' value comes from the fact that he's a connector. Outside of scoring, he's a really solid player across the board. He's already a really good role player. The playmaking, the passing, the rebounding, the decision-making, his IQ, his nose for the ball, the scrappiness, he's a very useful player. And even if he hasn't improved offensively, he's going to play a lot of minutes for this team. I think Pod should be the Warriors' backup point guard. The reason being, he's a better point guard than he is shooting guard. He operates better with the ball in his hands. That's also when he seems most comfortable. He's a good decision maker and he's an unselfish player. But in the starting 5, you already got Steph and Draymond who's handling the ball. So it makes sense that instead of playing Pod as shooting guard, you play him to his strengths with the bench unit where he'll be better utilized. He'll be the floor general with the second unit running the show. It'll end up being more time with the ball in his hands where he's most effective. And plus, the second unit needs a point guard. Besides that, Podziemski isn't ready for the defensive responsibility playing next to Steph in the starting unit. The Warriors need a better defensive guard to pair next to Steph Curry, and the only viable option is Melton. I've been really impressed with DeAnthony Melton. He's just a super solid player across the board. He reminds me of a poor man's Derek White. And by poor man, I'm not saying he's trash. By that, I mean he's the same archetype of player as Derek White. Just not as good, but very solid across the board. He's elite defensively. He can do a little bit of everything else. He can shoot, he can pass, he can play point. He rebounds above his size. He has a little bit of a mid-range pull-up. He's just super solid, man. In my opinion, would be a perfect fit in starting lineup next to Steph Curry. Next up, we gotta talk about Buddy Hield. Yo, I'm highly impressed with Buddy Hield. Like, obviously, I knew he was a great shooter, but bro, he is a great shooter. Like an all-time great shooter. You can't leave him open. If he's open, it's curtains, bro. He's knocking it down. How many role players like that have the Warriors had? I'm talking about a role player that you can't leave no matter what. I kid you not. Outside of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and I guess you could put KD in that category too, he's the best shooter the Warriors have ever had. Definitely the best role player shooter ever. And it's not just his shooting, bro. He can get buckets in multiple different ways. Like, he's built the Warriors out multiple times throughout the preseason, where the ball got passed to him, hot potato, and he had to make something happen. He threw up some bull and it went in. He's a really good player, man, and he's gonna help this Warriors team a lot. Just having another player outside of Steph Curry that's this level of a shooter that has this type of movement to his game. And he could bomb from like 3 to 4 feet behind the line. His jumper is so effortless, it's ridiculous. I'm gonna say this, bro. The Splash Buddies, they're gonna have some fun this season. I can't see Buddy starting next to Steph, but I can see them closing games together. If Buddy's knocking down the shots and he's holding his own defensively, man, what a pickup. The Warriors finesse with this one. I think they're paying Buddy around $11 million a year, which is nothing for a role player that's this low of a shooter. Speaking of shooters, let's talk about Lindy Waters. Yo, Lindy got stroked, bro. Like legit, the dude is cash, bro. Between Lindy Waters and Buddy, the Warriors got 2 knockdown shooters that you can never leave. Imagine if teams try to run a box and one on Steph. You got Buddy Hield and Lindy Waters to put in the game. That strategy is out the window. You gotta scrap that. Like, these dudes are shooters, bruh. And what I appreciate about Lindy Waters is he's not just out there just shooting. That's all he could do, like Kyle Korver. The dude can hold his own defensively, and he rebounds. He's scrappy, he's chipping in on the boards, he's doing what he can. And I appreciate that for a dude that's built as a 3-point specialist. He's not a one-dimensional player. And although when he first got traded here, he's projected as a 13th or 14th man. Bro, in my opinion, Lindy Waters is a rotation player. He's good enough to be in a rotation. He's just too good of a shooter, and not just shooter. He's too good of a player to just be on the outside looking in on the rotation. And he shouldn't be getting sent out to the G League either. It's a tough situation because the Warriors are legit 12 or 13 deep. They got like 13 guys who are all worthy of being rotation players. And like 3 of them are gonna be catching DNPs. That's crazy, bro. Now some of y'all might be like, the Warriors are too deep? That's a good problem to have. Not when Steve Kerr is a coach. I'm sorry, bro. But Steve Kerr, he's the type of dude, you can't give him more options. More options leads to worse decisions. Kerr can't handle more options, bro. Like, you don't want to get this dude more toys to choose from, more toys to play with, bro. Nah, man. Moody's nice, bro. Steve Kerr's probably going to pick somebody to play over him. It's just a lot of tough decisions that need to be made, and I will admit, tough decisions. But Steve Kerr is definitely not going to make the right ones. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Ever since Mike Brown left, the personnel decisions and rotations have been terrible. And that's all on Steve, bro. And I don't want this to turn into a Steve Kerr rant. I'm just being honest, bro. Now, can Steve Kerr prove me wrong? I mean, they did hire Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse as assistant coaches. 2 hires that I'm very high on. So hopefully that leads to better decision making behind the scenes. I don't have much confidence in Kerr to make the right decisions on rotations, which is why I think even though this Warriors team is going to be very good and better than a lot of us thought, I think they got to make a trade for the simple fact that they got to consolidate some of this depth, bro. Like, yeah, they're 13 deep, and that's going to help them get to the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, you're only playing 7 to 9 guys, maybe 10, and that 10th guy is like spot minutes. But as you get deeper and deeper into the playoffs, and your best players need to play more and more, minutes are getting cut for the dudes at the back of the rotation. So being 13 deep, once you get to the regular season and get to the playoffs, it's not really important, bro. It doesn't really matter because all those dudes ain't sniffing the court in the playoffs, bro. For the Warriors, since some of their main guys are older, I would say for them, being 10 deep going into the playoffs is all you need. Being 11, 12, and 13 deep, at that point, it's just wasted talent. Those extra 3 players, why not consolidate 2 or 3 players into 1 player that's more talented? That way you cut the rotation down a little bit, everybody that deserves to play gets to play, and you have overall more talent. It doesn't even have to be an all-star they get back. It could be a borderline all-star or a high-end role player. But with that being said, whether the Warriors make a trade or not, I think the Warriors are going to be better than a lot of people think. They're definitely a playoff team. I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to be a home court playoff team. And they're going to be hard as hell to put down 4 times out of 7 in the playoff series. I'm loving all the 3-point shooters. I'm loving the Warriors' emphasis on getting up threes as much as possible. I'm excited for this season. I think it's going to be a very exciting team to watch. Basically, from everything I've gathered from Steve Kerr and the players, they're prioritizing being a top 5 defense and getting up as many threes as possible. If they can accomplish those 2 things and shoot threes at a very efficient clip, somewhere around 46, 47, 48% as a team, which by the way, I think is very possible with the shooters they got. Yo, this team's gonna be dangerous, bro. I'm telling you. I'm not saying they're gonna win it all. I'm not saying they're the best team in the league right now. But what I am saying is a team that's a top 5 defense and shoots an insane amount of threes at an efficient clip with the best shooter in NBA history leading the charge. That's a dangerous team no matter how you put it, bro. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's all I got for y'all. If I entertained you or you learned something new, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.